agree with you.
That's what we really want to hear.
The situation persists not because of the parliamentarians' reluctance to diverge from the prevailing narrative. The situation persists because the people themselves have um, outsourced their concerns to the politicians. And so, because the people are not asking for accountability, the politicians remain unaccountable. It is our responsibility as citizens to demand what we want to see happen in our own best interest. And that is why, when it comes to Barbados and its republic status, there's a big question mark there because do the people understand what it means to be a republic? And do the people understand their roles and responsibilities in occupying a republic or in forming a republic? Because when you form a republic, all the responsibilities that you once vested in your democratic leaders are now vested in you. You are the government in a republic, a true republic. Barbados is a parliamentary republic, which, from what I see happening, is just it's ceremony. It's like Dr. Toll, may be familiar with depreciation, right? It's a balance sheet costing. It's not real money.
For sure.
So to me, that's what Barbados' claim to a republic is. It's not a real republic. It's just a ceremonial. We remove the queen as the head of state, but everything else, the infrastructure, the constitution, everything that was under the old colonizers remain. So how can you then say we have turned over a new leaf when what you have done in effect is to change the title of the book when the content of the book remains the same?
And that's what
so we are no longer going to call it a democracy. We're going to call it a republic. But when you open the book, the same words that were there when you were a democracy are the same words that are there when you're a republic.
So now,
it's an affront.
So Nico, now you see,
Yes.
now you see why I have said this over and over, that Barbados is a laughing stock of the Caribbean. It is, and I don't care what nobody can tell me, right? Using my common sense, not my sense, but using my common sense, Barbados is the laughing stock of the Caribbean because you're having the same old British values under a different name.
It's repackaged. It's repackaged slavery. Because you have what we call the house slaves, the Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
These are derogatory terms, but fitting in this context, that they are satisfied with their elevated position, with the morsels of power that they're given by their colonizers. And they use that power to subjugate their brethren. That is what is happening in Barbados. That is what is happening now in Jamaica with Andrew Holness, who has taken on a more draconian approach to governance. What should have happened? Because you have to judge people by their words and their actions.
Correct.
If the actions are not aligned with what is being said, then you hold the person to be a fraud.
Yeah.
If Mia was genuine in giving Barbados or transitioning Barbados to a republic status, what she should have done is to educate the people about what it means to be a republic, what we are required to do, because to change and reform your constitution takes a lot of money. Where is that money going to come from? Who is going to bankroll that transition? Because the transition takes resources. You will have to now look to your colonizers and hold them accountable in the world court, bring charges against them in the Hague to say, listen, you have robbed and raped us for centuries, pillaged our land of its resources, mired us in debt through the world, through the International Monetary Fund. And now we're asking you to make restitution and reparation so that the unjust enrichment that you have received over the centuries can now restore us to the position that we would have been in but for what you did to us, so that we can now have a true republic in the sense of the word. A country that is run by the people for the people. Because that is what a republic means. The people hold the law in their hands. There is no majority rules because we have been sold this lie of democracy. Democracy is a placeholder for tyranny.
The tyranny of the majority, somebody says. The tyranny of the majority.
Exactly. Democracy is the tyranny of the majority. In a republic, the majority does not rule. Because as we can see, as is evidenced by the COVID-19 pandemic, the majority can be woefully wrong to your own mortal detriment. So the idea that majority rule is a fallacious and fraudulent argument.
Correct.
And so we have these democracies that are, guardians of tyranny that have been foisted on us, and you have no choice because you're voting for the same side. There's only one side, and they create the illusion of choice, and they keep you in this bubble of slavery that you have come now to accept as your station. So the people in Barbados need to understand, because it's like people don't understand. Okay, what is a republic? So you need a public education campaign that you're going to inform the people what it means to be a republic, what it means to transition to a republic, because it simply means now that you're going to have to get rid of all the vestiges, all the systems of the old form of governance that you had. They gave the governor general, I think her name is Dame Sandra Mason or something.
Yeah, Sandra
the presidentship. So it's the same people who were lording over you, taking the dictates of your colonial masters, are there now saying, oh well, we are going to lead you into a new age where you're governing yourselves. That does not make any sense. Nothing has changed. The Constitution, there is nothing new, because you cannot be a republic unless you have a new constitution. You do not. The old constitution remains. So how are you a republic? It is ceremonial. It is not. It is like you giving your telling your 2-year-old son that he's in charge of the house.
I don't ever think the old constitution
to make him feel better.
I don't ever think the old constitution remained. I think that they got rid of the old constitution as well. And I said,
they did not.
Okay.
No, they did. What they did was there was a constitutional amendment that happened in 2021 that gave the government the power to remove the Queen as the head of state. That's all that happened. The constitution itself was never changed, because that takes millions of dollars, if not billions, and a lot of consultation with constitutional experts. You can't just change a constitution like that. You can't just come up with a new constitution overnight. It doesn't happen. So that did not. Your old constitution remains. What they did was to amend the constitution to give the government the power to remove the Queen as the head of state. That is all that happened. So there's no new constitution. So you are, in essence, not really a true republic.
Sugar D, I sent you that. So he's right. I put all three of those things on Barbados on the Barbados Republic. There's a menu item called Barbados Republic. You're going to see there is the old independence order, it's called, from 1966. You're going to see the constitutional amendment that Nico is referring to in the second document, which is the 2021. And I also sent you the document that is discussion now across Barbados under the pretense of consulting people. There's one salient point I want to make here quickly, please. Maybe one or two. The government, and as somebody pointed out, this government now has a 2/3. It has all seats. There's some changes you can only make in the Constitution if you have a 2/3 majority, right? This government has had more than a 2/3 majority for now the second time around. So while I do not want to disparage the consultations that are going on, I attended one last Sunday. I think Fred was also there. All right. I attended one last Sunday at the Dylan Griffith School. While all this consultation is going on, I hope you understand, Barbados need to understand, right, that because the government has a 2/3 majority, it can change anything in the Constitution that it wants. That is why people need to stand up and get up and say what they want and what they don't want. And I know some people are doing that, right? Because if you don't forcibly say what it is you want and don't want, all the people have to do is go to Parliament and vote, and you know the rest of the people, the ministers there who are fighting to lose their pick, are going to vote yes. Everything will pass through both houses. You know that. Come on, let's get real now. All right?
That's why I asked the question I asked. Again, it's alleged that Mayor is going to be, or is supposed to be taking up that role. What happens next? What happened to the people of Barbados?
Well, the issue at hand here is not about the position that she is scheduled to take up. I do believe that the rumors are true. She has been speaking at several events on the geopolitical stage, and she has been primed as the person who would largely have influence over the Caribbean region. So to the extent that those rumors are afoot, you can look at what she is engaged in, the speaking events in terms of the UN and those global bodies that can inform your opinion as to where she is leaning. No, it is one thing to be a part of these organizations, but it's another thing. What are your motivations? How will you being a part of this body benefit the interest of the Barbadian public? What it is that you are hoping to capitalize on by being a part of these organizations or this committee or these groups that we're going to see tangible benefits coming back to Barbados, because that is where it lies. But if you look at her actions, are her actions benefiting the public of Barbados, or are they benefiting her?
And that is a question. That is a very interesting, Nico. That's a very interesting question that I don't want yourself, Fred, or Dr. Tull, or myself to answer it. I would like to extend that to Barbadian public that are listening right now. Look in the mirror and answer that question. Go ahead, Nico.
Yes, so that's what I was going to say. You preempt me there. I was going to say that the people now should answer that question, because that's not a question that I can answer. You have to look at her actions over the past 2.5 years and ask yourself, are her actions benefiting you, the people of Barbados, or are they benefiting her as a politician and advancing her wealth and political career? That is the question that you must ask and that you must answer. And when you come to a conclusion on your own, then you must now decide what to do. One suggestion that I may offer up is that you invoke a referendum. The government should you put forward a referendum to form a new government, because you're now a parliamentary republic, but there is no new government. There is no government, there's no constitution, there's no nothing. So you are in a state of limbo. So now you need a referendum where you're going to form a new government. It is now up to the people to decide, who do you want to lead? Now remember, these people under a republic, this is what people need to understand, because you have now accepted this new state of being, so you must now live with the consequences of that. You are now a republic, which is what every single country on the face of this planet should be, by the way. Make no mistake, every country on this planet should be a republic. But what does that mean? It means that the citizens are now actively participating in their own governance. That's what it means. But if you are content to let others make the decisions for you, you cannot be a republic. That's what people need to understand. If you can't be bothered with government and understanding what they're doing and looking over their show, it's kind of like if you're running a business, you can't let the employees to run the business. You have to manage the business. That is what a republic means. It's not one person, you know. Each individual citizen in a republic is responsible for managing the affairs of the country, which means that there's active participation in governance. You have to be a part of every decision or be aware of all the decisions that are being made in your country. You have to go to these meetings and whatever, whenever they call, you have to go there and let your voice be heard and cast your vote so that when a law comes into place, you were a part of that process. So you can now complain and say, boy, they've raised GCT by 1.5% and I can't afford food. Because you would have been a part of that decision-making process. This is what people need to understand. So if you are a country that says, well, I can't be bothered, that don't affect me, you can't be a republic. Go back to being a democracy. There is no need to have gotten out from under the queen because the queen wasn't really ruling over you anyway. You understand? So this is what people need to understand. It is a responsibility that you are now taking on. It's similar to having a child. Mm-hmm. It's not just you anymore. You are responsible for another human being. Correct. And so your whole attitude, behavior, everything about you has to change because you now have this little life that you must nurture and protect in this world. That is what a republic means. You have a child. No, you got to raise it.
I want to point out something here quickly. While people are thinking about the question you asked them, Sugar D, you have to really understand, as I said, let me invoke a mantra I used several weeks back. You have to learn to read the lines, between the lines, and beyond the lines. There is no way that Mia Motley, or anybody for that matter, is going to get that at that level in any international organization such as the UN, unless you are playing ball with them.
Exactly.
Listen, I don't want to say, I would say that twice and I'm done with that, right? In the sense that there is no way you are going to get to that level unless you are playing the game they are playing. The game they are playing is what you've been hearing about for the last couple of weeks. This is about control of the world and having national sovereignty become a minimal or eliminated so that there's one government, one central place that controls everything. That is the end game of organizations like the United Nations, who are in cahoots, of course, with the World Economic Forum. Let me get that very clear. There is no way she is going to rise to that position unless she's playing ball. And by the same token, there is no way she can change that when she gets there. So no matter how you look at it, right, whatever they're doing, that's the UN, that is wrong, she's going to have to carry on with it. Wake up to that.
Well,
all right. I pause there.
What you're saying is absolutely correct. I do know of that, and I hope that the listeners who are listening can adhere and comprehend, not understand, can adhere and comprehend what is ahead of them, waiting for them. All right, Nico.
Well, Barbados is not the only country that is suffering a crisis of leadership right now, where the leaders of your country are soldiers. Jamaica has been sold by our former Prime Minister, starting with PJ Patterson, And Jamaica, what to what Fred mentioned about the Antiguan airline, Air Jamaica was also one of those airlines that were used for illegal activities. And some of those played out in the news. Our own Prime Minister, and I spoke at length about it, and a lot of people, Jamaicans, are not aware that our Prime Minister was appointed in May of 2021 to the Privy Council of the now deceased Queen Elizabeth II. And I asked the question, is this not a conflict of interest? Because if you are on the Queen's Council providing counsel to the Queen, because that's literally what it means, you are advising the Queen, how can you then, in your role as Prime Minister, serve the interests of the Jamaican people? Because you now have two masters. One, the people of Jamaica, who are sovereign by virtue of their constitution. And two, the vestige of our colonial past, the Queen, who you must now counsel. Are you going to counsel her against her best interest, or are you going to counsel her against the interest of the Jamaican people? Because those conflicts will arise. And no one asks the question. I'm looking to the constitutional experts. I'm looking to the people in the media. I'm looking to the people in academia to raise the question, how is it that a sitting Prime Minister can now be a part of the Queen's Council? And, well, no, the King's Council since the Queen dead, right? And also, I think last week, because Fred spoke about the pandemic emergency fund, right? Where the World Bank set up this fund back in 2018 to pay countries based on their case burden for coronavirus, right? And so Jamaica got several million US dollars from this fund, and it now came out in the media that 400 million Jamaican dollars was misappropriated in our Ministry of Health. So a lot of these people are unjustly enriched, and they are not serving the interest of our country, because I think our Minister of Health is now the president of PAHO, something like that, right? So you see where, as they carry out the tyrannical agenda of the elite, they get positions in these overseas organizations. They get their props, their rewards. You can see the rewards happening in real time, but people will see it. This is how hoodwinked the people of the Caribbean are. Like when we see, yes, it's a good move and +1 for your country. Like, no, that was payment for the death and devastation that they brought on your country. And you're there celebrating it unwittingly, because you have been you're totally checked out of what was happening for the past 2 years. So when your Prime Minister is now the director of some organization way over south and speaking in some big conference over west, and you say, yeah man, that look good for Barbados, or yeah man, that look good for Jamaica, not understanding that these are the rewards for bringing in the totalitarian state that they're trying to cultivate, because they recognize that the Caribbean has always been under the crushing boots of places like the United States of America. Make no mistake, the United States of America has been actively engaged in sabotaging our economies. This is what people need to understand. And there are documents. We know here in Jamaica that our former Prime Minister, Edward Seaga, was a part of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America. I forgot which president. And he was trained in anthropology to come to Jamaica and create this culture of crime and violence. So you will see where Jamaica is number 1 or number 2 in the Latin America or whatever, where it comes to murders. But if you look at the history of where that is coming from, you will recognize that there were operatives from the United States in Jamaica training people in gang warfare, assisting in the drug trade, where the political parties created the garrison communities that exist to this very day, and that is responsible for pretty much all the gangs that are in Jamaica, and they finance these criminal activities. And so there is much that is happening that the public is disinterested in, and they're looking to, going back to my point of Hegelian dialectic, the people who created, not started, created the problem in the first place. This is what we need to understand. Much of what is happening in our societies, whether it is in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Antigua, wherever, these things are created by the very people that we are calling on for a solution. Because it makes them relevant, it allows them to control you, and it allows them to control the narrative, and it allows them to keep us divided. Because once we are divided, we cannot see the real truth of what is happening, because I am so caught up in fighting against you and you fighting against me that I don't realize that while we're fighting, there's that dude running away with the food that we're fighting over. Him gone with it. So by the time we don't fight and realize what is happening, the food is gone and we're both losers.
Hungry.
That is what has been happening.
Still hungry.
Yes. That is what has been happening in our respective countries and our respective societies. The level of crime and violence that exists, the level of poverty that exists, has been orchestrated by the remnants of colonialism. Because these rich people, if you look at the rich families in your country, my country, you know, it's the slave people, the people that had our ancestors as slaves, is their children, grandchildren, blah, 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 that has that unjust enrichment, and they hold on to the power, and they are the ones behind the political system, giving you these two parties to create the illusion of choice and to foment conflict. While serving, if you look at the tax policies, the banks are rubbing us blind. I have a credit card, and during the period where I wasn't working, I used the card, obviously, right? And when I looked at the interest that the bank charged, and I'm like, how can this be? Because if I was to put all the money that they charge the interest on in the bank, I would not get even a fraction of a percent of what they're charging me in interest. And you could say, well, you're looking at risk or whatever. My balance is quite high. So clearly, if there was a risk, it would have been a relatively small balance. So they perceive that, oh, well, you're going to pay us if you take the money. Because remember, your credit card limit is based on the level of risk that the bank is willing to accept, right? And my balance is close to $2 million. So clearly, if I was that much of a risky customer, you wouldn't be giving me a close to $2 million balance. So why is the interest rate almost 49%? When if I put any amount of money in any kind of investment, when I'm going to invest in equity stocks, buy preference shares, invest in a mutual fund, invest in ETF, is it ETF or EFT? One of the two. I'm not going to get 10% return on that investment at all. I'm not. But the bank is going to charge you an exorbitant interest rate on a loan that you take from them. How does that make any sense? When the same money invested in the same bank will not yield anything comparable to what they're charging you in interest. And this is how they keep us poor. You go and you apply for a job and they pay you pittance. And you have to work hard and you kill yourself on the work, and at the end of the day you can barely afford. These things are done deliberately. Make no mistake. They are done deliberately because there are outside interests that are vested in seeing that our economies do not prosper. And this is what people need to understand. And that is where now your participation in your own governance becomes relevant. Because if you are actively participating in the governance of your country, these kinds of policies that benefit the rich and keeps the poor poor, you will get rid of them. But instead, what is happening is that people are sitting there complaining, murmuring, and not holding anybody accountable. You complain about the price of goods and services, but you do nothing about it because, boy, the government. You complain about the level of crime and violence, and then you now wonder how the hell guns coming in the country when we don't make guns. You blame the government. You complain about, boy, them now pay me enough money. You blame the government. Okay, get rid of the government then. Like, come on.
Logical.
You keep blaming the government year after year after year after year for the things that concern you, for the things that are affecting you. But at the end of the day, come election morning, you vote for the same people who for the past 78 years have done nothing to ensure that your economic situation is better. So who is at fault here? Is it the corrupt politicians or is it you? Because if you know someone to be corrupt, then you can only expect them to engage in things that are contrary to what you want to be done. So if a thief steals something from you, that's his nature. If it's a thief, you don't know so the man a thief already, and in thief from here you're going to complain. You should have protected your property because you know he's a thief. Why then are you going to leave him to roam free and then complain about his behavior? You were aware that his fingers are very fickle. And you should have taken the necessary steps to guard your own, because it is your responsibility. And people need to understand you cannot outsource that responsibility to the government. It is your responsibility to ensure that you put the people who you think have that integrity to lead you. And you also ensure that there are systems in place where, if they do not carry out your represent your interests, you can get them out. You don't have to sit and wait 4 years to get these idiots out. You can either through by way of a petition or whatever. You need to ensure that there's a mechanism in your constitution that allows for the expeditious removal of a member of parliament or the entire government if the people believe that it is not serving their interest. Because this is what is missing in these, tyranny by the majority. Once you vote in the government, you gotta wait 5 years to get them out again. Foolishness. Because in 5 years they can run the country in the ground.
Let me support you there, Nico. You know, one of the problems with people in Barbados and Caribbean is they have low self-esteem with respect to their ability to manage themselves. They feel that only a certain set of people who can, as I said weeks ago, who have this eloquent way of speaking, they're the only people who can actually run the country, participate in organizations of the UN. That's something that people, you're right, no, Nico. It's really people themselves with the problem, We got low self-esteem. Now, I want to encourage people out there, because we got to start also getting to solutions. I want to encourage people out there who believe they have a knack for administration and management to start preparing themselves to participate in a new paradigm. It is nothing that is impossible, and there are a lot of things that you can learn as well. You can learn how to manage. What we want is people with integrity. And then we can also do the training and help you figure out how to get certain things done. You weren't born the wrong government. Nobody was, right? So we got to stop this thing believing that we only certain people can do it. That's nonsense. Get yourself ready. Prepare yourself. Prepare also to learn this lifelong learning, because the time is coming when you've got to get up and participate, and you actually can do it. I tell you, you can do it. Get yourself ready. That's my message to people.
Okay, right. Well, I want to say thank you, guys. It's been that time. It's been great. 16 minutes past 12, 16 past 12. Quick words of wrapping up quickly before we get our half an hour in for Rose's Wellness, please. Okay, Nico?
Well, my final word is that what the listeners need to do or start doing is to convince yourself that you are interested in what is happening. It is a trick. You can trick yourself into believing something, and you make that into reality. I know that it is easy to be overwhelmed by what is happening, but go at your own pace, and because you have to be involved. There's no escaping it. You have to be involved. So get involved in whatever way that you can, and start now.
Okay. All righty. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for passing through. We'll do it again next week. Next week, Saturday. Thank you, guys, for passing through. This has been a discussion on 246BajanVibesRadio.com with Dr. Tull, Nico in Jamaica, and Fred Corbin in Barbados. Thank you very much, gentlemen.